afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me, Dorothy, on Through Orthodox Christian Lens, second segment for today. A little bit of news, just a little bit of news on the Iran, Israel / U.S. the war events. I wanted to share this because it was so ridiculous. I'm going to play this really quickly for you.
I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with the war. If we didn't take that out, they'd be fighting right now.
Yeah. Okay. Not thrilled over that. Not thinking that's the greatest thing to be saying. I find it kind of gross, disrespectful. And first off, to compare those two. He says, well, not to compare, but that usually means I am comparing it. I found that strange that he would compare bombing the nuclear facilities of Iran to bombing hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians in Japan, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. See, his point is, well, that stopped the war. This is going to stop the war. Can you understand how this is just not good? Disgusting. I mean, my immediate thought was, I wonder how Japanese feel about that. There's some Japanese still alive from who were survivors of those atomic bomb attacks, and I don't think it's very respectful or sensitive to be making such remarks as that. And he's saying this. He makes this out to be this huge deal. Bombing the three nuclear sites, which we've been hearing over the past few days have not done much damage. And they definitely, they'll need to go down there and look underground. But from what I've been hearing, even from our U.S. intel and military, that they did not reach that deeper area where they were supposedly, where the Iranians had that nuclear material, which again, as I said in two different videos, they moved those before it happened. And the fact that we told them that we were going to bomb those areas beforehand and gave them plenty of time to do that. In fact, I'm wondering if he told them that when he was saying, oh, I need 2 weeks. It could have been in that period as well. So to add to that, Iran passes bill to halt IAEA cooperation as fragile Israel ceasefire holds. Iran official says the U.S. torpedoed diplomacy as Tehran moves to suspend IAEA ties following war with Israel. So the bill, their parliament passed a bill that would effectively suspend the country's cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, as Iran insists it will not give up its civilian nuclear program in the wake of massive attacks on the country by Israel and the United States. The move on Wednesday comes after a U.S. and Qatar brokered ceasefire between Iran and Israel ended 12 days of fierce hostilities, including an intensive U.S. military intervention that struck 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. Okay. So, my first thought on that is, well, can you blame them? I mean, it seems only thing that the West and Israel understand is power, might, just, violence. they don't understand. The only way apparently any country can protect themselves is by either submitting to the United States without any, submitting their sovereignty to them, or going this route of the nuclear war, or a nuclear bomb, getting nuclear weapons. I say this as someone who doesn't really, I don't agree with having any nuclear weapons. I wish they hadn't been invented, like I said. I wish they hadn't been used, they hadn't been able to make weapons out of this. The destruction is just unbelievable. Now, the question is, I think they probably have to go through the Supreme Authority group of people. I don't know what you call it there. But you also need to go through the Supreme Leader, who isn't for having nuclear weapons because he finds them unethical or inhumane, which they are, but I don't know if he's going to change his mind on that or not. I feel like, though, unfortunately, I don't know. I feel like Iran may have to do that for their own sovereignty and protection. Another thing we need to say is, after he's opening his mouth on, how great we were, Trump continues to say how great this is, the bombings. You can see, this is in Isfahan facility, this picture. It's a satellite view of tunnel entrances leading into the underground sections of the facility. This image was taken before the June 22 airstrikes. Okay. U.S. assessment reveals surprise about fate of Iran's nuclear program. A preliminary U.S. assessment has found that the recent American airstrikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities did not destroy the main elements of Iran's nuclear program, but likely delayed its progress by only a few months. According to 3 sources familiar with the matter who spoke to CNN, the assessment was carried out by the Defense Intelligence Agency, part of the Pentagon. It has not yet been made public. One of the sources told CNN that the report was based on a battle damage assessment conducted by U.S. Central Command in the aftermath of the U.S. strikes on the nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, which were announced by U.S. President Donald Trump early on Sunday. CNN reported the analysis of the damage to the sites and the impact of the strikes on Iran's nuclear ambitions is ongoing and could change as more intelligence becomes available. Yes, somebody actually has to go into those tunnels if the tunnel entrances are able to be entered. If there's not just a bunch of rubble and it's closed off. Eventually, there's going to have to be people that go down into Fordo and all these other areas, the other 2 areas. They're going to need to go down there and assess it themselves. The people in the region, people who can actually go in there and look. However, we've heard multiple reports, as I said, that the damage was not massive. How many news stories do we have to hear before that makes sense, or before people believe it? And they'll probably come up with, maybe sometime somebody, if they go down with a video camera and show there's nothing, then maybe they'll believe it. I don't know, but the point is, if they've moved this to an undisclosed location, all the materials, and they're getting out of the IAEA, and so they no longer have to have inspections, because Israel never allows inspectors in for their nuclear program, then we may not know where it is for a very long time. Who knows? We don't know. Anyway, I wanted to share those stories. It was, the Trump's mouth can be something. But in any case, his words, the thanks so much for watching. Please follow my channel on Rumble. Please subscribe to my channel. Follow my channel on YouTube. And if you like my videos, please like them, share them. I really appreciate it. Hope you're having a great day. I'll be back later. Until next time.